Hi again, this is part 3 of the Introduction to Fire Doors. This training program has been brought to you by the BWF-Certifire Fire Doors scheme, and I'm here with our scheme manager, John Fletcher. John, could you please explain what we're going to learn in this section?
Yes, Tim, in this section we're going to look at the BWF-Certifire scheme itself and what that means. And we're also then going to go and look at the components that are required to be fitted for fire doors and why it's important that these components are compatible with the fire door and how that relates to the test evidence.
And who is this module relevant to?
This is relevant to all those people who are involved in the specification or the design of buildings and the components that go in them. And it's also relevant to those people who sell fire doors, or are involved in fire doors in any way, and install fire doors. It's important to those people who are involved in the maintenance of fire doors and the upkeep of buildings, particularly when it comes to fire risk assessment, so they can have an understanding of what the role of the fire door is and how important it is to relate that to the door certificate. Okay, so let's look first of all at what we mean by the BWF-Certifire scheme. As we mentioned in one of the previous modules, the BWF-Certifire Fire Door and Doorset scheme represents about 70% of all the fire doors that are sold in the UK. It's a product guarantee scheme, and it works through certification and audit. Certifier is the third-party accreditation body. They're the UCAS test laboratory who conduct independent testing of the doors and the components, and they also carry out audit checks of the manufacturers and licensed converters. Licensed converters are companies that are licensed to be able to undertake various conversion work on a fire door in conjunction with the prime fire door manufacturer's certification information. For example, if the door has to have an aperture cut into the door, then that has to be undertaken by people who are competent in that type of work. In the case of the BWF-Certifire scheme, they're licensed to be able to do that work and audited by Exova Warrington Certifier. We also have merchants and merchants or distributors in our scheme, which are called approved fire door centres. So doors and their components can be traced correctly up and down the supply chain by following the information that's contained on the label. The label tells you what the rating is for that particular fire door. In this case, an FD30 shown by the yellow tab on the end of the label. It also shows who made the fire door and how to contact the manufacturer if you need to. It provides a CF number, which is a certificate number for that particular fire door, in this case, let's say 380. That allows you to check that the door has got the right configuration and the right component details ready for that particular application. The door has a unique manufacturer's number as well, so we can tell whether that door has been supplied correctly and has been converted correctly by a licensed converter. A licensed converter will cut an aperture in the door and will apply a second label to show that he's licensed to be able to carry out that operation. That number will be a CAF number, and that will have a relevance to that particular door. The labels are fitted to the top edge of a single door leaf, or in the case of a door set, they're fitted to the left-hand hinge side of the door. In the case of door frames or glazed apertures, they carry a separate label, a CAF label, which is either has a green tab or a red tab to indicate that it's a certified fire door frame or a certified glazed aperture. Both of those labels applied by licensed converters who are licensed under the scheme to be able to manufacture those components under the guidance of the door leaf manufacturer's certification evidence. And in the case of a converted door, there will be two labels one showing the door manufacturer's label, the second one showing the licensed converter's label, showing that that door has been converted by a licensed company.
Okay, thanks, John. So could you tell us what are the components that make a fire door work?
Yes, there are a variety of components that ensure that a fire door works correctly. These are right from the fire door frames through intumescent seals and smoke seals through to glazing of fire doors, ironmongery, and we're going to cover also what that means in terms of installation and maintenance. So let's just quickly look at each of these individual ones. It's very important that the frame is compatible with the door, and in other words, it fits in with what was tested in the first place. It's important that the correct material is used and the correct density of timber is used in the case of timber fire door frames. So fire door frames should be available really from either the fire door manufacturer themselves, or if that's not possible, then from a third-party certificated company that's part of the BWF-Certifire scheme. One of the things that we have in the BWF-Certifire scheme is a interchangeable fire door frame, or lining or casing as they're often called in different parts of the country. And that's been designed to fit most manufacturers' fire doors that are part of the scheme and that are the most common doors that are supplied by merchants. So this is a common size fire door frame that is a minimum requirement for half our fire doors. In other words, the specification shouldn't be reduced. The important thing to remember is that you must use a fire-rated lining and not a standard ordinary internal door lining. It must be a fire door rated lining that's compatible with the door. It's important too that an intumescent seal is fitted to the fire door frame. These typically are fitted in the frame rather than the door leaf, and they're fitted along the two vertical sections and the top edge of the door frame. They're not fitted to the threshold. Intumescent seals are important because they contribute to saving lives and property. They make sure that the door will work correctly, and they prevent the flow of cold and hot smoke. Ideally, they should be supplied and fitted by the frame manufacturer. If they're going to be replaced because of repairs that might be needed to be carried out, they must be equal to the original door set assembly. In other words, you've got to fit the same size seals within the door frame. Many doors nowadays need to provide both fire, smoke, and what's called acoustic containment. And it's important that you have acoustic test evidence when you're fitting seals into fire doors. As you see in the top of this slide, there are requirements for acoustic containment for door sets, for dwellings, hotels and apartments, and schools. And regulations give different acoustic levels for each of those applications. But they have to be a combination of both acoustic containment as well as fire and smoke containment. When it comes to glazing in fire doors, it's important that this is undertaken correctly, as we've already mentioned with our licensed converters. Any door that is changed will affect the performance of the door, and therefore it's important to understand that this has got to be modified by a company that's licensed to be able to do that work, to show that they're competent in doing that work. If you cut apertures on site, you will negate the certificate. You will be effectively tampering with the door and changing its performance criteria in such a way that it won't work in the way it was tested. Apertures are required for different reasons. They're required for safety, for convenience, for visibility, and often for energy regulations and for Part M accessibility regulations. If you're going to buy an apertured door, you need to buy one either from the fire door manufacturer themselves or from a company that's authorised to be able to carry out that work, and we describe them as licensed converters under the BWF-Certifire scheme. So remember, one golden rule: cutting apertures on site is not permitted. This diagram shows some of the examples of apertures that are cut into fire doors. The manufacturer's instructions will state exactly what the maximum size is for those apertures and how close they are to the edge of the door. So limits will be set by the test evidence for what size apertures can be cut into that fire door. And that not only includes glazed apertures, but also apertures that are cut for such things as air transfer grills that you often get at the bottom of a fire door. There are different ways of glazing fire doors, and this can be shown in this diagram here, either by using specific glazing channel systems or by using intumescent glazing strips. The important thing is they must be glazed correctly using proper intumescent materials. In the case of ironmongery, it's important that you only fit ironmongery that's specified by the BWF-Certifire door manufacturer's instructions. The reason is because it's got to be compatible with full tested assembly. They must be BWF-Certifire approved to show that they're compatible with the door, and they must be CE marked. And the installation of ironmongery must be within the range of application or field of that ironmongery's application. One of the things to remember is intumescent protection, which may be needed for certain applications such as door closers, locks, latches and hinges. Often this is an intumescent pad that fits behind the hinge, as you see in this diagram, to be able to have continuous intumescent protection around those products and prevent any fire and smoke from getting past the door frame, between the door frame and the door leaf. So as we've seen, fire doors have got to be an engineered safety device. They've got to be fitted correctly, and their performance depends not only on the manufacture and testing of the product, but also on its correct installation. So as you can appreciate, it's not a standard task, it's a specialized task, because after all, it's a matter of life and death as to whether that door is fitted correctly or not. It's very important that doors are checked on a regular basis, and that depends on their use. Some doors will be used much more regularly than others, for example in schools or hospitals, where there'll be an awful lot of traffic using that door, and it's important that the door is tested and checked to see if it's still in working order, and that all of the components are working correctly as well. If there is any need to change those components, then they should be done on a like-for-like basis. In other words, if you've got a particular type of closer, you must exchange that for the same type of closer and not put a different type of closer on, which will affect the performance of the door.
Okay, thank you very much, John. That brings us to the end of part 3. If anyone's interested in further education on this subject, what are the options available?
Well, the best option is to gain an FDIS diploma qualification. FDIS is the Fire Door Inspection Scheme. The course that we've just been giving now has just given you an overview of fire doors and the role they play and what responsibilities everyone's got to have in the supply chain. That's from manufacture right through to sales. If you want to learn more, you can further that knowledge by linking to the FDIS website, www.fdis.co.uk. And there you can actually sign up for and gain a fire door diploma qualification. And that provides you with an industry recognized qualification where you can actually apply online, learn online at your own pace, and where you can sit your diploma test at a local test centre. And that qualification enables you to, or entitles you to use a DIP FD qualification after your name, which is a benefit to you and to the rest of your company as well. Well, that's the end of the course, Tim, so congratulations, you've completed the course, and let's just summarise what we've learned over these particular modules. We've looked at why we need fire doors, how they're tested, how components are required to match the fire door test, what the regulations say about fire doors, and in particular we've looked at certification and how it's important to have third-party accreditation for the components and products that you use. And also we've learned what the role is for the fire door, for the BWF-Certifire scheme and how that works. If you want any more help and information, then you can go to the BWF-Certifire website, bwfcertifier.org.uk, where you can download fight cards, view films, find out up-to-date news about fire doors, and in particular you can learn about scheme membership or find a supplier from our scheme directory. That will give you a list of members of the fire door scheme, those companies that are manufacturers of fire doors or components, or our licensed converters as well.
Okay, thank you, John, and thanks everybody for watching.